So, welcome to this session on the earliest settlers of Great Britain. So, it might interest you to know who were the very first people who had set their foot upon this mass of land. So, now, before we get started with the people, races, all that, it's good to have an idea as to where Great Britain is located. So, this is the map, and this is the area. Great Britain, we'll be talking about Great Britain in the coming classes in the whole semester, right? So, you can see where it is located. It's a part of Europe. This is the European continent, the full European continent. You have France here. This is the Iberian Peninsula consisting of Spain and Portugal. And here you have Africa. This is Asia. This Middle East. You have the Eurasian continent here, Europe and Asia. You have the Russian side here. Fine. And here you have Greenland. Another name is Denmark. So this is the location. So you can see this is a tiny little island. It's off the coast of France. So France and Great Britain, they are separated by this water body called English Channel. So we must have learned in geography that once upon a time, that is at the very beginning of life or even before life came into existence, the whole land mass of this earth was joined together, right? It was one huge land mass, and because of all the tectonic movements and the geological movements that happened underneath, what happened? These land masses, they broke and they moved away from each other, and they have remained, or and there are scientists who tell us even today they are in the process of moving continents, and these things are moving. Continental drift, you call it, the movement. And when they move and go and collide against another landmass, you have the creation of mountainous regions. So history and geography tells us that Himalayan range has been formed because of this impact of the Indian subcontinent going. It was actually adrift in water. It came swimming, and it kind of went and collided against the main land there. And out of that collision, you have the mountainous region taking shape. So it's an ongoing activity, the geological activity. So there was a time when this landmass, which it is actually a group of islands, right? This landmark was a part of Europe. It was a part of Europe. Everything was connected. The whole thing was one landmass. So people who were here so slowly must have walked into this land. There was no water separating Great Britain from the rest of Europe. So Europe, it is believed that this was a part of Europe, and people could simply walk from this area to the area that we call Great Britain today. So now this is the political map of United Kingdom. United Kingdom, they're all separate countries and nations now. You have this is England. This much is England. Here you have France. Please have a look at this, because every now and then we'll be having back and forth kind of references to France, because the relationship between England and France has been one of a love-hate relationship, you can call it. So even when you're talking about different kings and monarchs and dynasts, they had some kind of connection with the people in France. So you could say they share their genetic pool with them. At the same time, there has been a lot of marriages between the different royal families of France and that of England. So you have a lot of give and take between these two. So you can see France here, and this is England, and you have the English Channel. And this closest that they come together, or the closest they are together, is known as the Strait of Dover. And you can see the place Dover here, and you have Calais in France. So it is said that if you stand in Calais, you can see lights in Dover. And if you're standing in Dover, that southern end, you can see lights in France as in Calais. So the gap is not much. And to the west, this side you have Wales, the northern region you have Scotland, and then again separated by this water body you have Ireland, and you have Northern Ireland. So part of this is a free nation. Ireland, this much has become free, and this is part of the United Kingdom. So that's a basic idea about the land, the country, and the geographic location we'd be talking about. So now Shakespeare has called this piece of land a precious stone set in the silver sea. So we have already seen how British Isle was once upon a time part of northwestern Europe. So people of northwestern Europe, they must have walked into Britain during the great springtime after the Ice Age. You know, you're familiar with Ice Age, right? So after the Ice Age, when the ice thawed and the land was visible, people must have walked in from the European side, Northwest Europe, onto Britain. And after that, we don't know exactly when, this landmass that we call Britain today broke away from Europe and now it's kind of floating in water. And we'll be starting with the old and the new stone ages. So we don't have any history, or things are not available before that. Most of these things have been reconstructed using different models made by scientists. So you have geologists, you have biologists, many people studying together and trying to form a picture of what would have been and what could have been there in the past. So we start with the Stone Ages. So we have some recorded history or some artifacts and ruins left from the old and the new Stone Ages. So we are putting together things and we're guessing, imagining, and kind of constructing the whole thing. And this is how we study history. And so when you talk about these very, very first race or the very, very first kind of people living there, they were at the mercy of nature. I mean, savages. They did not know anything about nature, or they really did not know anything. They were just like animals. And again, for your information, human beings, as in sapiens, we belong to Homo sapiens, right? Like that, there were many other species as well. Neanderthal was the closest. Neanderthal, and there were so many other. And of all these different species, only we remain now, Homo sapiens. So during the Stone Ages, old and new Stone Ages, maybe the other species also were there. Maybe there was mingling, maybe there was not, but then there were connection with even the Neanderthal and all. So these people, they were at the mercy of nature, and the time span that we are talking about, that Stone Age, is around 3000 BC. So around 3000 BC, this whole land was actually like a huge forest with uh, kind of hostile vegetation and hostile landmass. The whole place was boggy as in with bog, chili, right? So obviously you cannot really stay there, teeming with all kinds of creepy crawly creatures, and then vegetation with full of thorns, a very hostile kind of a terrain wherein human being couldn't really live in peace. But by 3000 BC or so, all these things, vegetation, it kind of toned down, it became more hospitable, and human beings, they started settling and flourishing. And after the Stone Age, you have the Iberian people coming there and settling, and then you have the Celtic people. So when you're talking about the earliest settlers in Great Britain, we're talking about the Stone Age human beings, followed by the Iberians, and followed by the Celtic people. The first three groups of people. Now, who are these Stone Age humans? So they came to this place around 3000 BC. So Stone Age, we know, has been divided into the Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic ages. Neo as in the new Stone Age. And what were these people like? They were very short. They had black hair. It might interest you to know, because nothing like the modern day British that we know. So they were short, had black hair. They were dark skinned. They had a dark eye with oval face and very narrow skull. So these were the earliest human species. So scientists, they tell us the species that inhabited Great Britain during 3000 BC, Maybe they were Homo antecessor and Homo heidelbergensis. Homo antecessor as in antecessors of the real Homo sapiens or the real human beings that we know today. And Homo Heidelberg is a place in Germany. So maybe they dug out some remains from there, and they have put together, they have kind of done a genetic sequencing, and they have arrived at a map of, kind of a genetic map of what a human being, an ancient human being from that period might have looked like. So the earliest human species were Homo antecessor and Homo heidelbergensis. And these people, they were hunters, hunter-gatherers. They started domesticating animals, and they wore something like a rough garment. Then they made pottery and ornaments, and they buried their dead in large chambered tombs. And these tombs would be lined with huge stones. So even today, we can find certain remains of these Stone Age era. So now, this is a reconstructed image of the oldest human skeleton that was found in Britain, and it is called the Shedder Man. The Shedder Man is a human male fossil. It was found in Gauss Cave, Shedder, in Somerset, England. Shedder is also famous for cheese. Those who are into food would know Shedder. So the skeletal remains, it dates back to the Mesolithic age, that is towards the end of the Stone Age. So those humans looked something like this. And I'm sure when you look at it, you can see that this is nothing like a modern British face. And surprisingly, the eyes are light in color. So somewhere along the way, initially they used to have dark eyes. So somewhere along, you can see the sequencing, the thing has changed. It has become light in color. So if you are interested, there's a lot many work going on about Shedder Man. You can look it up online. This BBC has come out with a nice series on all this. You can go and watch them online. Okay, so after the Stone Age, we move on to the Metal Ages. So Stone Ages were followed by the Metal Ages around 2000 BC. And the people who came to Britain during this period, they are known as the Iberians. Now, who are these Iberians, and why do we call them Iberians, and where is this place called Iberia? All right, so now have a look at this map. This is the map. England is somewhere here, right? I mean, Britain is somewhere here. So now this is Europe. You have France, right? And this is that a kind of a landmass, a kind of a peninsula. Peninsula as in a landmass surrounded by water on three sides. So you have this Iberian Peninsula consisting of Spain and Portugal. So these Iberian people, they originally belong to Africa. You can see Africa here, right? And there's a very small water mass here separating Africa from the Iberian Peninsula. So from here, they journeyed or they traveled onto the Iberian Peninsula. So obviously they would carry these matter and genetic matter that is the African genes. So from there, they slowly moved to the Iberian Peninsula, and from here, they must have moved on to Great Britain. So this happened around 2000 BC. So this is a new race which came to Britain through the Iberian Peninsula from their home in Africa. So originally from Africa, then moved on to the Iberian Peninsula, and this did not happen overnight. Please remember, generations and generations had passed. So maybe there was a mingling, whatever, with other genes, genetic pool, whatever, right? So these people, they were also black-haired, and they were also short in height. They were skilled weavers and craftsmen. They worshipped sun. The Stonehenge in Great Britain is a remnant from this particular era. I'll be showing pictures of that. Your textbook, the cover page of your textbook has the picture of the Stonehenge. Even our Google Classroom and LMS also carries that picture of the Stonehenge. It's one of the most defining images and pictures of Great Britain. And it is believed to have been a kind of a temple, a sun temple built in honor of the sun god. We don't know. we have so many questions left unanswered. How did people manage to get the stones? And these stones actually come from some other region, because those kind of stones are not native to the place where it is. That is the Salisbury Plain in England. So it has been brought from some other area. So how did they manage? And of all the thing, how did they manage to kind of make it stand, and how did they manage to put the stones one on top of the other? We don't know, but they managed to. So they were all skilled, they were quite skilled craftsmen. So they made use of bronze, copper and tin. That's why we call it the metal age. And where did they settle? They settled along the chalk hills of the southern region. It is conducive for grazing. And where is chalk hills? Again, I'll take you back to the map of Great Britain. Chalk Hills is somewhere here, Dover, this region. This is the southern region, Chalk Hills. Now, when you look at the whole topography of Great Britain, please remember all these areas towards the north and the west, they are very mountainous, rocky, hostile kind of a terrain. Not very friendly, as in, it's not very conducive for human habitation. People have kind of now domesticated the area. They've made it livable, but earlier it was terrible. It was that place where nobody went. It was teeming with all, as I told you in the beginning, all kinds of creepy crawlies, all kinds of dangerous plants and animals. So people would avoid this region. So initially you had all these people settling along um, the southern region as well as the eastern region. So this plain, this area is the best in terms of vegetation, plenty of fertile lands available for grazing as well as cultivation, right? So you find almost all the settlers coming and landing and making this area their own. And it's quite interesting. That is, when you read about the Stone Age people, they also kind of came and settled here and all. They were around this area. So later you have the Iberians coming and settling entirely here. So now when the Iberians, when they came here, what happened? They pushed the earlier inhabitants, as in the Stone Age people, the people, they were still there, their descendants would have been around. So these people, the original inhabitants, were pushed away into the hostile regions of the northern region, that is Scotland and the Welsh, this particular region. They were pushed to the western region as well as the northern region. And later also, when you have different gangs and different bands coming and invading Great Britain, you find one group being replaced by the other. And what will the replaced people do? They escape to these regions. So you find Ireland is actually full of Celtic people. So where did they come from? So Celtic is the next group, that is after the Iberians. So Iberians were pushed away, and then later you have the Celts, and Celts were pushed away by the Angles and the Saxons, the Anglo-Saxons. So all these people took refuge in these areas. So now this is the chalk hills, that particular area. So they settled down here. We're talking about the Iberians. And you can find their remains, or the kind of artifacts they have built in Wiltshire and Salisbury Plain. So you have the very, very famous Stonehenge, and then you have also those kind of circular things, huge circular things. I'll be showing you some pictures, some aerial shots of the same, which we believe are centers of worship. We don't know. Maybe those things were made in honor of some deity. We don't know. In places like Salisbury and Aubury in Wiltshire. So now, when these Iberians came, they uh, the Iberians were pushed westwards and northwards by the coming of the Celts. So this was the fate of the Iberian people. They were pushed away. So when you look at Western Ireland, Wales, and the Highlands of Scotland, you'll find that many of them, they belong to the Iberian stock. Later, the Iberian stock was further added on by the Celtic stock. So we are talking about Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. So all these people get pushed away from the best regions by the coming of new gangs or new groups. So now these are some specimen pictures of facial reconstruction of Iberians. So typical Iberians must have looked something like this. So you can see there is a change. The eyes, they remain light. You can see the facial structure, everything is undergoing a change. Earlier it used to be a small oval kind of a face, and now it's becoming more chiseled and toned. You can see that change coming in. These pictures of some very famous Iberian constructions. Here you have Stonehenge in Salisbury, and this very mysterious kind of a building. You have these huge circular things um, in Aubrey. It's called in Wiltshire. Now, after the Iberians, you have the coming of the Celts. And the time period is what we call the Iron Age, that is from 600 to 55 BC. So, who are the Celts? Celts are tribes that came from the northwestern areas of Germany and the Netherlands. So, Germany, Netherlands, all this would be to the northern region of Great Britain. So, whenever we're talking about these different people, kindly have the map of Great Britain in your mind. So they came from the north, whereas Iberians actually came from the southern region, that is from Africa through the Iberian Peninsula into Britain. Whereas the Celtic people, they came from the northern region, from Germany and Netherlands. So now these people, they came, they took over the land, they tamed and they made the habitable regions of Britain their home. And what happened to the Iberians? They were enslaved and they were harassed. There was many of them were massacred. So poor Iberians, they could not withstand this attack by the Celts. So they fled for their life. And where did they go? Which direction? They went westwards and northwards. As I told you, they were not, I mean, the western region as well as northern regions, they were like the wild region where nobody wanted to go and live. So these people, whoever were defeated and whoever were in danger of being enslaved and harassed, they fled to these regions, what we today call Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. That's on the west, and Scotland is towards the north. And Celts, they came in three groups. So the first lot who came and settled in Great Britain, they're called the Gaelic or the Goidelic tribe. They were there in Great Britain for around 3 centuries. So they overran the place and they settled there for around 3 centuries, 300 years. And this group, Gaelic Goidelic tribe, they were followed by another group again from Germany and Netherlands. They were called the Brythons. Brythons. So they came from the south of Western Europe. They came and settled in Kent and near the river Thames. They were very large in numbers. Earlier, the Gaelic and the Goidelic, they weren't much in number, whereas this group, they came as a big gang, a huge gang, large in numbers. Therefore, this land occupied by the Brythons came to be known as the land of Brythons and later Britain. So from that, now we understand from where Britain gets its name. So Britain gets its name from this tribal group called Brythons, which came from Western Europe and settled in the area called Kent and near the river Thames. And the last of the group was called the Belgae. Belgae. So they settled, they came to Great Britain, that is from 100 BC to 55 BC. And we will be stopping with 55 BC when we are talking about the earliest inhabitants. Why? Because 55 BC is a very important landmark in the history of Great Britain, because in 55 BC you have the coming of the Romans, that is the Roman conquest of Great Britain. Now, why did they come? One reason was this group called Belgae. Belgae, they had many of their relatives, their tribal people going and settling in this region called Northern Gaul. Gaul is in France. And France is just a little away from Britain. We have seen that, right? They could just take a ship and go over. It wasn't much a long journey. So they had connections there. So they had people coming and going, Belgaes, because they had their brethren, their kin living in Northern Gaul. So they had this very close connection with Northern Gaul. So we know when Julius Caesar went about conquering the world as in world that was not known to people at that time. World was only that Western world for them. they were not very much aware about the existence of the eastern part of the world. All right. So that Western world, when Julius Caesar went on conquering and taking more and more land under him, what happened? He had reached France, that is northern Gaul. So he conquered people from northern Gaul, and he understood that these people had relations across the water in Great Britain. So now this made Julius Caesar want to attack them after attacking these Celtic people in Gaul. So you can see strange are the ways of destiny, strange are the ways of history. Maybe if this connection was not there, maybe Julius Caesar would not have known about Great Britain, and maybe he would not have become interested in Great Britain. So maybe they would never have gone to Great Britain, and Great Britain would not have become a part of the Roman Empire. Maybe history would have been something different. We don't know. And these are some of the specimen pictures of Celtic peoples. If you are in the habit of watching things like the Game of Thrones and things like that, you would come across these kind of people, the dressing. These are some specimen pictures. This is how they used to dress. And the Celtic society, and we know they came from the Netherlands, the northern region, right? Germany. So their genetic makeup was totally different. So they were very tall, they were light-haired warriors, they were quite skillful in the use of iron, and they were tribesmen and clansmen, and they believed in obeying their tribal chiefs. So they had this idea of honor and listening to their chief, and they were closely connected with each other. So that's why we call them tribesmen and clansmen. And this is again the time when you have the starting of agriculture. And if you need to cultivate something, you need to settle down in one particular place, right? So you have the starting of agriculture, but then these people, they were more attracted towards that nomadic lifestyle, wherein people move around from one region to another. And they went and settled mainly in the south and southeastern region. I had shown you that in the map, right? The south and the southeastern regions, they were the best grasslands, pastures, and they had the best iron ores. So most conducive and suitable for settling down. And these people, they followed a religion called Druidism. The religion is known as Druidism, and their priests were called Druids. So they believed that there is this divine spirit in everything, in all objects, and gods and goddesses, they haunted particular springs and caves and mountains and forests. They believed in fairy tales. So when you look at Shakespeare and some of his most beautiful characters like Puck, Ariel, Titania, Oberon, they all actually come from the Celtic belief. They are not actually Christian in nature, all these characters and the kind of beliefs that go into the making of these stories by Shakespeare. And then again, you have some remnants of the Celtic society, even today, in the form of maypole dancing, May Queen, Halloween, trick or treat. I'm sure you're all familiar with that, right? And then they even had a coinage of their own. You have some pictures here of the maypole dancing. You must have seen this in movies and all, right? So they have these kind of ribbon kind of things. So this is celebrated during springtime, maybe May and all. So they have competitions. So it's you could call it a social kind of a festival wherein people gather in the outskirts, when I mean outsides in the plains, and it's kind of a picnic time wherein they enjoy. So they have the maypole dancing, and then they have the May Queen. One young, beautiful, unmarried girl is selected as the May Queen. That is based on her achievements in dancing, things like that. And then you have the belief of this Halloween, right? That pumpkin touch, into the shape of demons, and you have children going around asking trick or treat. So you give them some treats, candies, chocolates. If not, they'll spook you or they'll do some naughtiness. And people prefer giving them tricks rather than giving them treats rather than being spooked by whatever they do.